Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. I am so excited to have joining me on the program, Amy Anderson from Wild Coffee Marketing. That's right, Wild Coffee Marketing. So we're going to talk about the name. We're going to talk about the services, of course, but I want to get started with talking about the person behind the microphone. Amy, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely a pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your background and how it led, I guess, to starting a marketing consulting firm called Wild Coffee.
Absolutely. Well, this is my 28th year, which is hard to believe, working in marketing. And I started in New York City in the early 90s in the media business, first in print with 17 magazine. And then I ended up doing marketing for companies like Calvin Klein. And I was part of the original group that started nytimes.com in the mid 90s. Since then, I've run sort of some B2B marketing teams. And about 5 years ago, I saw a need for small businesses through even businesses up to $50 million in revenue who need outsourced CMO and advisory services. So that's when we founded Wild Coffee Marketing.
That is fantastic. Again, I'm chatting with Amy Anderson, Wild Coffee Marketing. So the name of the business, I just have to cover that because I've been looking at your name all week, getting ready, excited for this conversation. Wild Coffee Marketing. So what's the meaning behind that identity? And I'm sure it has a lot to do with some of your experiences over time.
Well, absolutely. Believe it or not, wild coffee is actually a plant native to South Florida that grew outside my window in an area of Miami called Coconut Grove. So it is this beautiful, hardy plant with these white berries that had to be cut back and sort of contained all the time. So it's sort of beautiful and fierce and fast growing. And when I started my consulting firm, that's what I was looking at when I was actually sitting at the computer. So it was a really sort of easy decision for me to name a consulting firm that. And one of our values is energy is everything. And so the coffee sort of name really goes along with that.
Absolutely. So Amy, along those lines, you talked a little bit about some of your success over the course of more than 25 years of experience at brands such as Calvin Klein, NY Times. Really, really impressive. But you are also a mom. You're a female business owner. Tell us a little bit about how that has impacted your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, that's a really good question, Shalom, because what happened was we had a little bit of a life change in our family. And I found myself sort of after taking 2 years off from work, needing to go back and support my family on my own. And so I really wanted the flexibility to be with my young sons at the time, who are now teenagers. And so I was able to sort of start my own schedule. And that is sort of a misnomer, right? When you own a small business, because we're all working all the time, but I was able to be there for them as when they were little. They're both athletes. So I am part taxi driver and Uber. And so it's been a really sort of interesting ride with them. And I know that a lot of times kids can look at parents as a source of inspiration, and they've watched me start from one client to 16 employees and a roster of many.
Amy, so Wild Coffee Marketing, that's the name of the business, but there's a common, you just used the term misnomer, and there's a common misnomer and a difference between an advertising agency and a marketing consultancy. Can you educate our listeners what's the difference and where Wild Coffee comes in?
Well, Wild Coffee is, we like to call it sort of a hybrid. We are marketers at heart. So my team actually has all worked client side for much of their career. So that means they've been a marketing person and a marketing executive in a company. So strategy really comes first and really sort of setting out plans. A lot of times when you work with an agency, they may be more creative focused. Right? So you may already have to have the strategy in place, or they'll do project work. And what we find is sometimes missing is really that work to understand ideal customer, to have a cohesive plan that goes across all aspects of the business. And so we're able to sort of put that strategy together. And then we have a team in-house that can implement it as well. So we provide sort of both areas of that support.
That's so helpful. And what I hear emanating through all of our conversation is you have a pretty strong philosophy, a pretty strong mission. Tell us how that came to be and what advice you have for fellow business owners that might be tuning in.
Well, I don't believe you can start any tactic in marketing without really understanding who you're talking to, your ideal customer, and what you're going to say. So a lot of times businesses will just jump in and start their tactics without doing that foundational work. And we actually won't work with a client until they have agreed to do that work with us. So ideal customer, messaging blueprints, and really understanding what you're going to say to whom, then you can actually go and execute on all of that work.
It is so important to have that, and it's challenging at times to be proactive. I believe that business owners that are at our very hearts, we are firefighters. We know how to problem solve and fix things, but it actually becomes so much easier when you put the work in up front to make sure that you have that strong mission statement. And we're going to talk about leading teams when we return, but I do have to squeeze in a quick break. Again, I'm chatting with Amy Anderson from Wild Coffee Marketing. We'll talk about some of the successes, and again, a quick break here on the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. Get on my website, shalomklein.com, where you can download podcasts from the past 8+ years of shows. Be sure to get on your favorite podcast app, subscribe, rate, review, and share. Not only Get Down to Business, but also We All Serve, my other military leadership podcast. Surely a lesson for everybody tuning in. Again, a quick break. We'll be back with Amy Anderson when we return in just a moment. Hey, welcome back. We are talking with Amy Anderson from Wild Coffee Marketing and having a great conversation about the importance of having a foundation and having essentially a plan, which is so important in business ownership. So, Amy, along those lines, a lot of our listeners are small business owners. They're getting started in their journey of entrepreneurship. What advice do you have for them? What's the one thing that you sort of can point to in your journey that you would just love it if people would not make that same mistake? Or maybe something that you did right that you would want everybody to replicate?
Such a good question. One of the things that when we are going out on our own as small business owners, starting a business, you have a product, a service. One of the things that I didn't really think about when I first started is I've had success in marketing, and I've done one thing for 28 years. And how do I go and bring that out to people who could use that service? And that is, if you're not always selling, you don't have a business. And so kind of finding those ways to distribute your product, get your name out there is really critical, and really being able to sell yourself. So you can be great at what you do, but if you're not actively pitching and selling, then you're not going to build that revenue. Also, I really think that just starting with your local sort of Google My Business and looking at your footprint on the internet. Is your website what it needs to be? Is it easy for you to be found? And to pay attention to your reviews. And it's okay to ask clients and customers to review you online. It's something that it's expected, right? To follow up after a service or a purchase and ask for that really helps establish your presence online. And it's something that we started from the beginning and had clients talking about us, and it created a little bit of a buzz. And when people are vetting you, then that's there.
Oh, such great advice. Amy, so we don't have time to highlight all of your successes, but since getting started in business, and you, and important to mention your team, have been able to help many businesses with, as you said, that hybrid approach to marketing, branding. Tell us some of the success stories.
Well, one we're working on right now, which we've had some really early success that's interesting, is there are a lot of post-COVID, there's a lot of consolidation happening. And there are, in the middle of the United States, about 100 to 150 small tuxedo stores rolling up into a single brand. And that's been a really interesting project for us to understand sort of common messaging, what people need in the stores, all the way through what the website and all the social media looks like. So that's been a branding project that's been really fun. And we also work with one of the largest boat manufacturers of boats under 30 feet in the US. And we've quadrupled their social engagement and their leads. And I think that's driven by COVID also, really, because people really want to be out on the water. So we've had a lot of fun with those two projects and really helped those clients start to build more and more revenue and momentum in their journey.
Those are awesome success stories. That's fantastic. So, Amy, we are running out of time, and I want to make sure our listeners know where they can get in touch with you, your team, learn more about your work, and learn more about you. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, I think the best place is to go to wildcoffeemarketing.com. There we showcase some of our work, and especially I'd love for people to see the team that's behind all the work they do. So you can see that there. We're also on LinkedIn. And I'm on LinkedIn as Amy Anderson at Wild Coffee. And we are often posting podcasts like this one that we're on today and some of our thoughts about how to accelerate businesses using marketing.
That's great. And my final question is, what type of coffee do you like?
I am an organic, slightly vanillaed, just black.
Okay, so a little wild, but
a little wild.
Okay, well, we'll take it. Again, Amy Anderson, thanks so much for joining us on the air, and that is a wrap for us here on Get Down to Business this week. We'll be back next Sunday at 6 p.m. on AM 560, The Answer in Chicago, but also on your favorite podcast apps. Be sure to get on my website, shalomklein.com. To success, let's get down to business. We'll talk to you next Sunday at 6 p.m. Thanks for joining us.